Yo, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey there, everybody. This is Sean from the Dukes of Dice. No Alex with me tonight, but along with me, though, I'm fortunate to have Jamey Stegmaier from Stegmaier Games. What's up, Jamey?
It is so great to be here. Thanks for having me on, Sean.
Very excited to have you. So this is one of our live Q&As that is made possible by our awesome Patreon supporters. And this is the one where we get to bring in an awesome industry insider like Jamey. And then a little bit later, I know some of our different count level and Duke level backers will be joining us. And hopefully we'll have some people popping up in the comments. And we'll talk about some cool stuff. So, so Jamey, for people that don't know who you are, which sounds shocking, why don't you let everyone know a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I run a little company in St. Louis called Stegmaier Games. We published, and I've designed and published a couple of our games, Viticulture, Euphoria, and Scythe. And we've published a game called Between Two Cities from two other great designers. And I also write a lot about Kickstarter online. I've made a lot of mistakes on Kickstarter. I've learned a lot of stuff, and I always try to share that stuff on my website at kickstarterlessons.com.
Very cool. Well, real quick, we've got one of our Duke level backers. Derek, how's it going, buddy?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good, good. Have you guys interacted on Twitter? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, here and there, I think.
Nice to meet you in face-to-face.
Yeah.
So Jamey, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on right now is that obviously much of the Scythe fulfillment has happened. I know there's still a couple lagging behind, but for the most part, the majority has happened, right?
Yeah, we're down to like the last 200 copies.
Okay, cool. And so my group's had a lot of fun with it. Like I've put on Twitter, and we were talking before we went on air, that we've had 3 copies of Scythe going at our Wednesday night game groups for the last 3 weeks. And that's at once. So I think there have been like some nights 4 or 5 different games of Scythe going throughout the night. So it's been really popular with our group of about 20 different people that have learned Scythe over the last 3 weeks. So I think it's a hit. I think the consensus is it's a hit. What does that feel like?
It feels good. I mean, it feels really good to see that sort of feedback, especially from the Kickstarter backers who were there from the beginning, supporting the project. To see them happy to get what they received and happy to play it, that means the world to me. So I'm really happy to see that happening. And I'm curious what the next step is, the retail release, and I'm curious if it'll get the same reception to people who didn't back the Kickstarter.
Sure. Now, I don't want to say too much about my thoughts on Scythe because that's what we're reviewing for episode 103. So I kind of want to keep that a secret. Although I think if people have heard me talk about it the last couple of weeks and have heard that I've played it like 8 times in the last 3 weeks, may not be a big surprise. But I don't want to say too much. And Derek, feel free to jump in whenever. But I think it's interesting that this, we talked a little bit beforehand. This was one of the most hyped games of Kickstarter last year, and it's interesting how I've seen there was backlash during the campaign because people are like, oh, it's just hype, and there's backlash now because people are like, oh, it's just a hyped game. But there's a lot of people that really love this game, and I'm wondering if we had you on the show during the Kickstarter campaign, or I think we had you on the show during the Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah.
And so we have now the 2 bookends, the campaign and the fulfillment, and just wondering if there's new lessons you've learned from the fulfillment, if your reactions to criticism, which I think there's more compliments than criticism, but I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, in terms of the hype, there was definitely a lot of excitement and kind of curious excitement leading up to the Kickstarter and during the Kickstarter. And by that point, like, all the information was out there, right? Like, people could play the game online, they could play the print and play. But I think there's still, like, a lot of people don't have the time to do that. You don't play the print and play game very often. You just end up getting really excited about it. And that, I found, is kind of a blessing and a curse, because it's great to have that level of excitement, but it also leads to really high expectations. And so if when someone finally got the game and things didn't look the way they wanted it to look, or didn't play the way they thought it would play, that I kind of felt extra pressure because of that. And I've seen that happen, especially with the fulfillment recently, where we're delivering the game early. right? The estimated delivery date was in August.
Right.
We ended up delivering some copies in June even, and then most of it in July. And just the level of, I guess, pent-up like anticipation and excitement, and backers seeing other backers get their games and they don't have theirs quite yet, it manifested into some frustration from backers. And so I've been trying to manage that and not get too emotionally involved myself, because I really want them to all have the game, and I want it to end well, you know. I want like the final delivery. I want that to be a happy moment, not a moment of you know, disappointment. So that's been an interesting process to try to manage that, even while delivering an early game. That's been tough with the excitement, but for the most part, it's been a very good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So we do have a couple of people that have joined us. Brad Skaggs says that Scythe looks good. I like that combat isn't the main focus. I'm going to bite my tongue because I want to talk about that, but in the episode. So I don't know. Derek, have you played Scythe yet?
No, so I backed it, and then for financial reasons I had to pull out. But I have it on reserve at my retail store right now. So as soon as it hits retail shelves, I'm going to grab a copy.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because it was kind of billed as a 4X, but I think I've heard somewhere that maybe you described it this way. I've heard someone describe it this way. It's not necessarily about the combat; it's about that looming threat of combat.
Yeah, totally. Like when I was designing Scythe, I had all of Jacob's the artist of the game and the world builder, and I had all of his art on my wall, kind of right behind, not this, like behind the camera wall. I realized at a certain point when I was balancing like how much I wanted combat to be part of the game, that in his art, the mechs aren't really fighting all that much. They're present, and they're a threat, and they're being supported by the farming community, the farmers, the people of the land, or they're scaring away the people of the land. But they're not fighting all that much. And so that really, I tried to capture that idea where the mechs were more of a threat and more and also a way to take over new territory than actual combat mechanism. And part of that stemmed from Terra Mystica. I love Terra Mystica, but in Terra Mystica, once you have a territory, no one else can ever take it. And so I wanted to put that little bit of takeover into Scythe, but not so much that it overwhelms the game and just becomes a combat game.
So that's interesting to me, because would we have seen a different game had there been a little bit more fighting in his art?
Probably, yeah.
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 So, okay, hold on. I'm trying to... So, I'm trying how to phrase... Okay. So this fall, a lot of people are calling this a hybrid, right? It's a hybrid Euro, Ameritrash, Amerithrash. If it were a spectrum, where would it fall on the spectrum in your eyes?
I think what it ended up being is much more on the Euro spectrum than the Ameritrash spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think just as I've heard it described, it's not people say an Ameritrash Euro hybrid, but really it's just a really thematic Euro. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's more the idea that the theme was driving the mechanics you used, and the mechanics are primarily Euro mechanics.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. And a lot of it did come from the art. I wanted to capture that feeling in the art, and that's where the theme came in. Not just like the pretty pictures, but also the feeling that you get when you play it.
Mm-hmm.
But the engine building is the huge mechanism in the game. Almost everything you do is building your engine and moving it forward.
Yeah. So what made you kind of jump into the Automa business? It seems like that's kind of your thing now with every game that you come out with. What kind of pushed you in that direction?
Well, really, I have to give credit to Morton. Morton's the designer, the lead designer of the Automa system. He's been a volunteer for Stegmaier Games for a long, long time, and I think it must have started when I was designing Tuscany. I went to Morton. I knew how passionate he was about solo gaming. And I said, I'm designing this Tuscany expansion to viticulture. Do you want to try to make a solo expansion to it? It was a while ago. I think it happened. He may have gone to me. I may have gone to him. But somewhere there was an interaction there. And And I basically gave him freedom of components to do whatever he wanted. I was like, design what you think is best, and we'll make the component for it and make it work. And that's how he came up with that deck of Automa cards that simulates an AI opponent. And so he did that for Tuscany. He did it for Between Two Cities, which is a very odd game to have a solo variant, but it's pretty cool the way it works. And then Scythe is probably the most complicated system because he has to deal with that map on the board. But from what I hear from solo players, it really turned out well.
Yeah, that's what puts it way up on my list because I do a lot of solo gaming as well. And the second I saw that, I was like, well, now I have to get this game at some point. So, leading question maybe, is this something we can look forward to in the Euphoria expansion?
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome.
I haven't seen it yet, and I know it puzzled him and probably stumped him for quite a while, but we're getting close enough with the multiplayer portion of the expansion that I think he's going to start really focusing on it. And I think he'll pull it off.
Awesome.
I'm curious, Derek, do you have, since you love solo games, we've done this thing where we have this deck of cards. Do you have any other solo games that bring in a special component that really brings the solo experience to life? What's your favorite game that does that?
That's an interesting question. The one I've been playing most right now, the two are Mr. Cabbagehead's Garden Game, which the thing that the designer uses to kind of simulate opposition is pretty much just a cube draw. So depending on the choices you make, you're drawing certain cubes out of a bag, which then triggers certain effects against you that kind of messes up your plans. And I found that a really interesting system. And then I just picked up Coffee Roaster.
Okay.
And that's a bag drawing, and really it's just the randomness of pulling something out of a bag that you have to try to mitigate that I think simulates that opposition in a much more passive way. So those are the two I think that are a little bit more creative than just, here's a deck of cards and you're trying to lay them out, and if you can do it in an efficient manner, you higher score. That's the usual kind of solo thing. Those two I think get a little bit more creative.
I'm going to recommend those to Morton. It was Coffee Roaster and Mr. Cabbagehead? What was it?
Yeah, Mr. Cabbagehead's Garden Game.
Okay.
I still have my copy. I've yet to play it.
It's a good one.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So a couple other things here in the chat. So Brad Skaggs again, he says that because it's a very pretty Euro, it should help him convince his wife to play. I don't know if that's kind of in a two-player context. I have yet to play two-player. I've played every player count. I did play solo, and I really like the card system. Although I'm not going to say anything more until the podcast. So, dang it, this is hard. But what is the two-player experience like? Because I could see it being a drastically different feeling than five-player.
Yeah, and it was so. I'm heavily influenced, probably too influenced by reviewers like you, Sean. I listen to what you guys say. I was telling you before this podcast has started that you said something that really impacted the direction that we've gone with the Euphoria expansion and my mindset for it. And I listened to Richard Ham, listened to Rado a lot, and he was all about the two-player experience.
Sure.
And so I wanted to create a two-player experience that works for couples or just people who play two-player games who want to fight, who want that type of engagement. But I also wanted it to work for people like Rado and Jen who want the full experience but don't want to fight each other. And so that's where I kind of kept that in mind throughout the designing the two-player experience, where I wanted you to be able to have that engine building experience and take over territories, but not necessarily have to fight or feel like you have to fight your opponent. And that's one of the ways I did that was with the tunnel system in the game, where you can be on the far side of the board as the opponent, and if you want to use that tunnel and jump over to be really close to them, you can. Or there's plenty of territory near you that you can conquer and get encounters from and things like that. I wanted to leave it up to the players, especially in the two-player or three-player experience, if they wanted to fight or not.
And so what was the design decision in not necessarily scaling the map in any way? I found that interesting because some games do that and some games don't.
Yeah, that might be just a small designer bias that I have, where I don't like to ever cover up a part of the map or it could have been modular, but Jacob and I decided pretty early on that we wanted the art to be seamless, and so we didn't want to pull in tiles that didn't really fit together all that well. And really, it was that tunnel system. Once we figured out, that came from Kemet for the most part. Once we had that tunnel system in place, even though the board looks so big, it's a lot smaller than it really is because of those tunnels, except for the number of territories that you could take over.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So Nick asks, in the two-player count, did you see more or less combat occurring than in multiple player playtesting? I
would say pretty significantly less.
Yeah.
There were definitely playtests where I could tell that the people just wanted to go head-to-head and have that experience, but a lot of the two-player playtests that came in had 0, 1 combat at most, maybe 2, but not very many.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's interesting, okay, again, I've got to try not to reveal now Alex's opinions about the game. Save something for the episode this week. He has enjoyed it much more than I thought he would have, given his taste in gaming. We have a Facebook chat open during the week while we're at work, him, me, and our buddy Matthew, and so we just kind of bounce things off about the podcast and whatnot. And for at least the first week, he was constantly asking, what do you think about this faction compared to this faction? What do you think about this compared to that? He was constantly thinking about it. So whatever that says about his enjoyment of it. One of the things he's dying to know, and I don't think I've seen it on BGG. I don't know if you've announced it yet. But as far as the 2 expansion races, have you announced their player powers?
I haven't, but I can talk about them a little bit here if you want me to.
Yes, by all means.
So one of the big questions with those factions is because they're not landlocked like the other factions, right? They can walk right to the factory if they want.
That's right. I didn't think about that.
Which is a powerful thing, to just be able to do that, to be able to expand without needing to build a mine or build a mech that gets you out. But it's also a dangerous thing because you have nothing keeping people out of any of your territory. Once they get out of their home base, they're in your area if they want to be in it. And so those 2 factions, Albion and Togawa, they have river walking abilities. And actually, this was the other thing. All of the factions have some way to get into. I think it's at least 2 other faction home bases. Which
right.
Your place, has anyone ever invaded someone else's home area?
It's happened in plays that I've had once.
Yeah.
And it was devastating. I don't think it was as devastating. I think this was a corner case where it was with the Rusviets, and it was Alex, which made it even more devastating. And he came in, took a bunch of my metal, and then I'm ready to counterattack, but because he was Rusviets, he can move again, and he used his village ability to teleport from my village that he controlled to the factory.
Nice.
With all my metal.
And that's the exact reason why I put that in the game. If someone is really stockpiling a lot of stuff in their home area, I wanted to make it possible for someone else to come in there, but I wanted it to be very rare because that's kind of it's almost an extension of your player mat, that little home area.
Sure.
So that was when I was designing the expansion factions. I did give them a way to get in if they need to, but they're weaker once they get in, or it's very limiting the way they get in. Like I'm being vague here. I'll just be specific. The Togawa faction, they can bring exactly 1 unit across a river. So they can't bring any workers. They could bring a single character, a single mech, which can be very powerful if you're not prepared for it. But they also don't have speed, so they can't ever move 2 territories in a row. They have to move 1 at a time. So they're a little slower to move around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Have you gotten much feedback on people completing not the objectives? What am I thinking of? The
achievements.
The achievements. Yeah. So in the back of the rule book, you've got a bunch of achievements like win a game without building any mechs. And that's really cool because you did that in Tuscany too, right?
Yeah, we had some achievements there. We went full force with them in Scythe. I got the idea from Power Grid First Sparks.
Okay.
There's an achievement sheet in that. I just thought it would be fun to give people. a little extra reason to try some new stuff once they've played Scythe, or even the first time they played it, but even the 10th time they played it. Have you written your name down yet?
No, because I have a problem writing on my components, and now I feel bad. Like now I'm like 8 games in, and I'm like, well, I can't. Now I can't start. Like there's already so much stuff that's happened that who knows if I've. So I don't know. Is there one achievement in there? Like I said, the one that sticks out in my mind, and the one that Alex has been puzzling over is winning without building any mechs. Is there one or two that come to mind that you're expecting to be really difficult, and you'll be surprised when someone pulls it off?
I think that one is the most difficult.
Okay.
Both because the mechs are, they look cool. You want to build the mech. Just, we're humans. We want to build mechs and move them around. But I think mechs are, even just having one mech can be useful to move around a bunch of workers. And so that is the hardest. But I've seen a few Facebook posts in the last couple days where people have done it. I think they've targeted that specific achievement and tried to make it happen. And the other hard one is getting over 100 coins, which after you get pretty good at the game, you can do it, especially in a game that lasts a little longer. If there's no combat and it's a little slower and you have more time. But I also use that as kind of a red flag. If someone scores over 100 coins pretty early, like in their first play or their second play, it's probable that they didn't play a rule correctly. It is pretty rare. Have you seen people do that in your games?
I heard of a play at Empire where someone scored like 101. I, in theory, scored 91 points last night, but I did a wrong final move. I still won. I won with like 67, I think, or 66. But I was like, oh, if I had done this, I would have absolutely won this fight, which would have kept me on the 3rd pop tier, and then some other stuff. But I mean, I think it's definitely something. I think that's definitely pretty doable.
Yeah.
So a couple side questions here in comments. Which faction was the toughest to balance? From Brad asks.
That's a good question because they were all. So like for the first wave of blind playtesting, we did 3 big waves of blind playtesting. The factions didn't even have their own faction power. It was just the mech powers.
Okay.
So they were added during the second wave. The faction power. I mean, both of them are related to how powerful a faction is. But I'm trying to think. Probably. I don't know. It's hard to say. They were all very. They all had times where they went up. They were overpowered, and then I brought them back down, and they were underpowered, and I was trying to even them out. I would say maybe the Roosviet faction, the red faction. Because for a while they had their faction power was pretty constant throughout playtesting, but for a while there was a cost to it, and we found that even putting the smallest cost on that ability deterred players from using it at all. I think the lowest cost was either a power or maybe a coin. You had to spend a power or a coin to do it, and with even the size cost, players wouldn't use it at all. So we got rid of the cost, and I would say that's probably the most powerful faction ability, although the Crimean one can be used really well. Do you have a favorite faction ability?
Yeah, I think I like the Polania.
Yeah, the double encounter one.
Right. So, see what you're doing, Jamey? You're getting info out of me. So I'll just say this: I like it when you're using the benefit as an incidental benefit. So the benefit is that whenever you do an encounter, you get to choose 2 of the 3 options instead of 1. Right. And I spent one game where I just concentrated on trying to get as many as I could, to the exclusion of doing other stuff, and I got wrecked. I just got wrecked. So when it's there as like an incidental benefit, because 2 options is really good, especially if you're using like one to pay for the other.
Right.
And I like their mech abilities. I like their submerge, where they can go on lakes and teleport from lake to lake. Yeah. I love that. I think that's super cool. Yeah. But speaking of the Crimeans, so our buddy Jared, he has, by the way, he's already painted the mechs and painted the characters. We played with his painted copy last night. It was awesome. Cool. Oh, he paints everything like the first week. Like it's maddening. Like he has like Cthulhu Wars fully painted. It's gorgeous. It's really frustrating. I'm like, how do you do all this so quickly? So he's asking when you do the expansion, and if it's a 6 or 7 player game, is there going to be an adjustment to the Crimeans? Because their ability is they can move to an unused player's home space.
Yes.
So how's that going to change, if at all?
Yeah, so there are two abilities that when you play with 6 or 7 players that you'll need, that will have like a little tile that you put on top of the player mat to replace it. One of them is the Crimean ability, and their new ability, I don't think anyone knows this yet, other than the playtesters. Their new ability will be that they can jump to any unoccupied farm. So farm is the core territory type, and so they can jump across. They can still jump across the board to a bunch of different places, but other players can kind of they can even jump into someone else's home area. But as long as they have something on their farm, then they can't get in there. And then the other one is the Polanian ability, which I wanted to keep to a certain extent, because when you play with a 6 or 7 player game, you're probably only going to get maybe 1 or 2 encounters from the Polanians. And so I changed that ability to keep the encounter part, but I said at the end of the game, you get 3 coins for every encounter territory you control. So even after all those encounters are taken, the Polanians still want to get in there and control those encounter territories, and they could get a lot of points from that.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. So let's see here. Jared mentioned that you have pictures on BGG. Oh no, his pictures of his painted minis. Yeah. I think he put them on. Did he put them in the guild? I don't remember. But yeah, they're really cool looking. I think I heard you on the Boards Alive podcast.
Yeah.
You're on like last week, I think.
Yeah.
And you had talked about the future of Scythe, and I know you're going to be working with Jacob on some other stuff, but not necessarily more Scythe, right?
Yeah, we haven't discussed more Scythe. I mean, I'm open to doing new factions and things like that. But we don't have that planned at this point. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Did you want me? I can keep going about. I didn't know if that was leading to something else.
No. I just curious about that. Derek, you have anything while I'm perusing the comments?
Yeah, but it's probably not necessarily pertaining to Scythe, so I'll let you continue to.
Well, we do have some other stuff in here about Gen Con and some other things. I mean, I'm sure we could always kind of circle back to Scythe if we want to. I will say, until our review hits, I am enjoying the game greatly, and this is probably the most plays of a game this weight that I've gotten in directly in anticipation for the review. So, like for example, when we reviewed Kemet, Kemet with the Tossetti expansion. I'd already played 15 games of Kemet over the last couple of years, but as far as plays specifically leading up to a review, this is easily the most. Easily the most.
Well, I like that in your reviews, you guys always say some good stuff, you say some bad stuff. I mean, it's a good mix of both, and you're not afraid to share your opinion. So I'm really looking forward to hearing both sides of it.
I'm excited to talk more about Scythe. So Derek, what do you got?
Yeah. So one of the things that I love that you do is you engage with the community in kind of different levels, and you've already kind of mentioned some of the stuff that you do as far as like talking about Kickstarter and the stuff you've learned. I don't know if it was your latest post, but it was in the last week where you talked about firing your customers.
Yeah.
That was a fascinating read and a fascinating concept. What made you? I mean, I obviously know what made you want to say that. You were, a little bit frustrated with some of your customers, but what makes you kind of say, I need to write this down in a blog and share this with other people?
That's a great way of asking it, Derek. It was when I have this Kickstarter blog that I write twice a week, and I have a long list of things that I want to write about at some point. Right now, I think the list has like 20 items on it. And I usually sit on those ideas for a long time until I feel like I either that I have something worthwhile to say that might benefit other people, or where I just have enough to say that I think it'll be interesting for other people. And that was one of those entries that I think I put it on my list a couple months ago. Because it's a hard topic to talk about, because I didn't want it to come across as vindictive or something that I take pleasure in doing. And the whole concept, for people who haven't read the post, the whole idea is I'm talking about how there are there's a very, very small number of customers that I realize at some point just aren't good for me or my company or my other customers to continue to engage them as customers. One of the examples I gave was there was a backer who contacted me about our shipping rates to Central Europe, which are a little higher than the shipping rates to Western Europe because of how FedEx charges rates. It's just, there's a breakdown of rates. And he sent like one of the most, I don't even know how to say, I guess it's kind of racist. It was just this bigoted email full of vitriol about how he thought that I was doing this terrible thing to people in Central Europe, which couldn't be farther than the truth from the truth. I try to get our games to everyone worldwide as cheap as possible, and I don't discriminate against anyone. And so when I saw that, I was like, this is just a customer that isn't for me. Like this, I don't want to engage this customer. I don't want to deal with them. I don't. And maybe this is wrong to say, but I was like, I don't want to try to find common ground with this guy. Like if that's his first email to me ever. And so I just removed. And what I mean by firing in the post is I just removed him from our e-newsletter list. And that guy actually I reported to Kickstarter because it was pretty nasty. Mm-hmm. But I guess your question was why did I even write about it? Because it doesn't necessarily reflect me in the best light or my company to say that I'm firing customers. And in this case, I guess I kind of wanted to. A lot of the posts I write are for other creators. They're not necessarily for backers. And so I kind of wanted to show other creators that my experience might be theirs too, and that sometimes it might be better off for them or their customers or their company to let a few customers go so they can better serve the rest of their backers or their customers.
Yeah.
What do you think? If you were in my position, would you have written that post, or would you have just?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's why I loved it so much. Yeah, I thought it was really well written, and you just say what needs to be said, I think. Yeah.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
I'll be back in a second. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I enjoy about your blog posts is I think they're a lot more transparent than you're used to seeing among publishers and among designers. Like I remember reading one where you were kind of talking about what was it? Was it why you have like certain form responses to common questions, or you direct people to a particular page for certain common questions.
It was, can we have this conversation in public?
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was that about? Because you obviously remember it better than I do.
Yeah, that one was about I get a lot of questions from people that could benefit a lot of other people if they would just ask them in public.
Right.
Like whether it's in the Kickstarter comments or on the blog, or if it's about the game, ask it on Board Game Geek or in one of our Facebook groups. And so with many of those emails, that was what the post was about. It was just kind of putting that conversation out there. Like, why would someone who has a question that could benefit a ton of people, why would they just make it about them and just email me? And I got some good answers in the post. Like I think it was enlightening for some people, and others were like, well, I'm really socially uncomfortable, and I don't feel comfortable posting that question online, even though I know it might benefit other people. And so that was helpful for me to hear that for some people that's not the right, even though it's not the right choice for them, that they're just really not comfortable with that, and I need to be more respectful of that. So it was helpful for me to write that and get those responses. But at the same time, I think it was helpful for a lot of people to see that they can help the community. They can actually be part of the community by asking that question in public instead of privately.
Yeah, so like I said, I appreciate how kind of forthright you are in those blog posts. Like I said, it's a nice kind of behind the veil of you and Stegmaier. On the chat, no pun included, says, I think you did the right thing talking about the prior situation.
Yeah.
Your company is a large part of your life, and you can't let that so much negativity seep in. So, yeah, I think that's pretty valid. So earlier, Rob Rouse, Rob from Blue Peg Pink Peg.
Yeah.
I can pronounce that correctly. So he said, is there anything that you're really looking forward to at Gen Con? Games, events, etc.?
Well, my Gen Con experience will be a little different because I'm spending, about 40 hours total just hearing pitches from game designers.
Wow.
So I think I have maybe not 40 hours, but I think it's 40 or 50 different sessions where designers will come and pitch. So I am nervous about that, but also really looking forward to it because I'm excited to maybe find the next game that we'll publish. In terms of published games coming out of Gen Con, which might have been what he was alluding to, let's see, like a couple of games that I'm really excited about are not coming out of Gen Con, like Gloomhaven I'm super excited about.
Yeah.
Mystic Vale is one that I'm really curious about, and I've pre-ordered it, but maybe for some people that'll release at Gen Con. And the new Codenames I'm curious about. What about you? Do you have a game that's being released at Gen Con that you're really excited about?
Not really. So I got to play Codenames Pictures at Dice Tower Con, and I think I like basic Codenames better.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff I'm just kind of ho-hum on. I feel like last year too there were a lot fewer big meaty Gen Con releases, and we saw a lot more at Essen, and even a lot more of like some of the Ameritrash stuff at Essen.
What about Star Trek Ascendancy? Are you excited about that one?
I am pretty excited for Star Trek Ascendancy. Okay, I just don't know that I'm going to get it to the table that much. Like I don't know that I'm going to be able to get the other one. What's the Mage Knight one? Star Trek
Frontiers.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm able to get that to the table much. I don't know that I'm going to be able to get Ascendancy, but it sounds really cool. And it sounds like either of those could be the Star Trek game I've been waiting for. But I don't know.
That's my hope.
Yeah. We have Seafall too. I forgot that's a big Gen Con release. I have that pre-ordered as well. But I think a lot of people will get that at Gen Con. Are you guys going to play Seafall?
I'd love to.
I had been super stoked for Seafall. Now I feel like I'm being really negative. But Legacy, Pandemic Legacy I love. I'm not crazy about base Legacy. I played it so much in real life, played it so much on my iPad that I can't get that excited about it. But when you add in the Legacy elements, I loved it. It was such a great experience. And the rest of our play group, Matthew, Alex, and Matt, we still have 2 months left, I think. And we give each other a hard time, or they give me a hard time, I guess, because we haven't gotten it back to the table. But I'm worried that Seafall is going to be a little too Merchants and Marauders-y, which I wasn't crazy about.
Yeah.
And I would hate to commit to that and then just be miserable. So I'm going to wait and see a little bit more, because I know the rule book's out, and I just need to sit down with that and kind of look over that and see if it's something that I'm going to be able to commit to and have fun with. I mean, I think Rob Davio is brilliant. I think the Legacy system is awesome, and I'm excited to see Legacy on top of a 4X, and I hope it is a 4X and not more Merchants and Marauders style game.
I think the biggest surprise for me was that he has there's a big book of stories that comes with it.
Right.
It's more like the above and below format, but permanent, which I think is really cool. Like, I love that book in Above and Below, but I had, whenever I make a decision in that, I want it to affect future things, and Seafall, I think, will do that. So I'm excited about that book.
Yeah. And speaking of Legacy, you're working on a Legacy game too, right?
I am, yeah. Yeah, a Euro game, a village building game called Charterstone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's coming along pretty well. I was working on we're working on some of the stickers with Panda to get that right. I'll have like the box of it at Gen Con. We have the box done, but there's a lot of stuff in the box that still needs to come. But and that'll be a solo play, Derek. It'll play from 1 to 6 players.
Yeah, that's the first thing I looked for when you announced it. There's the one on the front. I'm in.
Yeah. And I think this one might be a little easier for Morton to design that system, because in Charterstone, regardless of your player count, except for 6 players, you control a charter, a small portion of the village, and throughout the game, the other charters are still they're automatically growing if they're not being controlled by a player. So that way you don't just end up with a village where it's just your charter and one other charter. It's all the charters are continue to grow. So in the solo play, you'll be controlling your charter and moving around your workers and stuff, but all the other charters will be populated over time with little buildings and things like that as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one. That's definitely high on my list this year.
Well, it'll be a while. That at this rate, I think it'll be maybe a Gen Con 2017
Okay.
release.
Okay.
Things go well. Yeah.
Excellent.
So Jared also asks, have you thought about doing a pre-Scythe war game? So kind of showcasing this alternate history of World War One?
I haven't. That's an interesting question. I haven't thought about it. I think the reason I'm hesitating is that I don't play many games that are in that genre. I think Kemet is the game with the most combat that I play and really love.
Mm-hmm.
And Kemet so heavily inspired Scythe that I
Sure.
don't know if I would go too far in that other direction. Yeah, so I would say probably not, but it's a neat idea.
Okay.
I like it. Sounds cool.
I just got my corner clippers because I've started to go pretty heavy into GMT stuff over the last month or two, and so now I'm doing the thing where you clip all the corners of all the chits like 1.5 millimeters, and so I was upstairs earlier just clipping all these corners. It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
That's like a new level of gamerdom.
Yeah. Well, I bought plexiglass for
They talk about those levels like, where you get a BGG account,
right.
your collection is over 100 games, and then you're clipping corners on a GMT
Yep.
game. That's the top.
Yep. Yeah. Oh boy. All right. Let's see what's going on here in chat. Otherwise, another question Jared asked: the clamshells. So Scythe comes with these really cool clear plastic clamshells for holding resources, and when you take them apart, you can store components in both sides during gameplay. Are those going to be available for purchase later?
Yeah, well, for a while the answer to that was no, but we have enough spare parts left over, and they're intended to be replacement parts, but we have enough that I think will far surpass our need for replacement parts. And so in September 1st, in our e-newsletter, we'll do kind of an a la carte thing where if people want to order those little containers a la carte or extra Automa decks to simulate more than one player, there are a few other things. Some more mechs if people want extra mechs, like one set for painting and one set not for painting. We'll sell all that stuff then. So we'll do that in September. The problem with those clamshells is that they're so cheap to make, but to ship, the shipping is exponentially more expensive because they're big and bulk, or even though they're light, they're big. So I don't think it's a great value proposition for someone to buy a bunch of them, but maybe if they buy a bunch of them and we put them in an envelope, maybe it's worth it for somebody.
Yeah, I could see myself ordering a good many of them.
How many exactly, Sean?
I don't know. I don't know if you guys saw when I came back from BGG Con, or not BGG Con,
Dice Tower
Con.
Yeah.
I came back with I think 200 and some packs of sleeves that I bought from Tom in the flea market at he was running up and down the aisle trying to sell, or up and down the line trying to sell 2 for $1. And I'm like, Tom, I'll just buy the whole box. I'll give you $20 for the whole box. And so I came back with a lot of sleeves. So I have whole sections of my game room that's just storage for. I probably literally have about 20,000 sleeves of different sizes, just waiting for cards to fill them. So, and other stuff for storage purposes, because again, I'm a crazy person.
Well, I may have been thinking about this the wrong way, because I was thinking, okay, someone might buy 2 of these things, and then it costs 10 cents for me to make 2 of them, but I have to ship it for $5. But if someone wants to order 20 of them, the shipping is still about $5.
Right.
And it's a bit better. So if people actually want to order a bunch of them like that, maybe it's worth it. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll make a bunch and sell them in bulk like that.
So I know what I've done. If I don't have a straight up insert, like a wood insert from someone like say Meeple Realty, then I will have some other kind of storage solution. But if there's lots of bits, like for a lot of Euro games, I have these little cups that I just have by the game table, and I'll pull them out and we'll put stuff in there. But if I had I don't know, like 50, 100 of these, and I
Yeah.
could just store stuff in the box, and then take them out, and we're good to go. I don't know. There might be a market for that.
Yeah.
I would say there's a good chance there's a market for that. Yeah.
Yeah. We've been doing this thing for a while where I have this, whenever someone asks me, like, will you sell this? I have a form now where I send them to this form and I say, okay, if you want the thing, fill out this form, and if we get enough interest on it, we'll make it. So let me look up how much interest there is right
It's like
now.
a P500 kind of system.
Essentially, yeah. Right now, it's not that big. There are 138 people who say they want resource trays. I don't think that's enough to do it. Like, if we get up to like 500, I'll do something.
So you guys talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back. Hold on. Let me grab something real quick. Hold on.
So I'm interested. Something piqued my interest when you're talking about selling more Automa decks. So essentially, one deck then just simulates one opponent. Is that how that works?
That's right, yes. I think people have been asking for it so they can have like a second opponent or a third opponent, or even when they have like a two-player game. I guess with a two-player game, they can already have a third player as the opponent. Yeah, I think
that's really cool. I didn't realize that's how they function. I just figured they simulated the environment as a whole or something, but that's really cool. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I tend to be the guy who plays Sentinels with like 4 different characters at the same time, and so the idea of I'm playing my faction, but I've got 3 other factions coming against me really sounds like it'd be a lot of fun, kind of an epic solo game. So yeah, that'd be awesome.
That's what we're aiming for. What did you forget there, Rob?
Okay, so have you seen these? These are the classic GMT trays.
Yeah.
And this is the thin one, and they've got like the thick ones. So Nick had said, I'm sure there's a market for a retailer or game shop that would buy them in bulk for resale. And I know like they're like I got this at a local shop here in town, and they bring in a bunch. So I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
Those are fun.
And it looked like the new Uwe game is coming with a few of those, right? The Feast for Odin.
Oh,
game.
Is it?
Yeah, I think what they showed on the components, there were a couple trays. Yeah, just like that.
I think you're right, because it has a lot of maybe either plastic or a little cardboard chits or that needed to be separated. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Netters Plays says, Jamey, did you get a degree in game design? How did you gain all the knowledge to create games and be innovative?
I feel like I'm still learning a lot there. I'm still learning a ton. I learned by playing a lot of games and by listening to reviewers and by designing games and seeing how it works. So really, I've been designing games since I was really, really young. When I was like 6 or 7, I think I designed my first game. But it hasn't been until like the last like 4 or 5 years that I've really come to understand the entire process. That's about so much more than having an idea and making that first copy of the game. You know, it's this long process of playtesting and pushing buttons and playing a lot of different games in various genres. That's what it's been for me. But there are, like you mentioned Rob Davio earlier, I think he teaches a course on game design. And there are game design programs now. There's one here in St. Louis at Webster University. They have a good game design course. Yeah,
and I think Jeff Engelstein said he taught a course somewhere as well.
Scott Nicholson.
Yep, Scott Nicholson.
Yeah. So since you need a bunch of exposure to games, how often are you gaming like for pleasure, and how often do you find yourself at a game group and you're like, oh, I really need to try this new game, or I need to try this classic I haven't played yet?
There's a lot of that. I mean, I play a lot of games for the first time, but there are I'm also a gamer at heart, so I can't help myself. If I find a game that I really love, I can't help myself but play it a lot. I'd say Isle of Skye is the most recent one that did that for me. That was one that I could have played once and learned a lot from and moved on to another game, but I just had to keep playing that game. And
it's really good.
I love that game.
It's really good. Yeah. So I know that some people have kind of mentioned that I can't remember exactly who said it, but I remember them saying, "Oh, I'll pass on Scythe for now, and I'll wait for the Scythe Essential Edition." As a kind of criticism. So have you found that your development process is a little bit more meticulous now as you've developed, or do you feel like it's pretty much the same as when you started developing Viticulture and Euphoria?
Yeah, well, viticulture has been the one that has that I think has reflected that on our brand. It's a dangerous thing to do to continue to come out with new revisions like that. And I think we're at the right place now with the Essential Edition. But you're right. That was a hard decision to make because I really thought the final version of Viticulture would be the second edition, and that was the time when Uwe Rosenberg contacted me and said, "Hey, I want to." Well, actually, he's just said, "I love this game. I enjoy this game," and I invited him to make the More Visitors expansion. And then there was a whole discussion where he wanted to publish the German version of Viticulture, but he wanted a slightly more advanced version. So it was never my intent to do that. But yeah, even dating back to Euphoria and Tuscany. Tuscany does have an Essential Edition, but it's only because the first Tuscany had so much stuff in it. I wanted to make a cheaper version of it.
Right.
But Scythe in particular, and Between Two Cities, just went through a ton of play testing.
Yeah. I when I heard that, I mean, I wasn't trying to bait you or anything. I thought that was a totally unfair conclusion because, I mean, first of all, Viticulture is the only one, right? And you have several games out. And I guess it never really clicked to me because I benefited from it because I wasn't in on the first edition of Viticulture, and so I was just kind of sitting back going, "Oh, is this something I want to grab?" And then as soon as I heard, "Hey, you got an Essential Edition coming out," I was on it. I mean, it's so relative, right? I mean, you're benefiting so many people, and yeah, you might make a few people mad, but it's a great game either way, second edition or Essential. So take your pick, and if you love the game, just keep playing the one you have. You know, I don't know. That just kind of bothered me. So I thought I'd throw it up there so you could address it.
Well, thanks, Derek. I appreciate that. Yeah. I did hear that a little bit because we did the Tuscany Essential pre-order campaign, I think last week, a week or so ago, and I even heard that a few times with that, and I was like, well, you know, it's a little different in this case. I can see the word essential is used, so I can see there's some confusion. But I mean, there's no revisions to the gameplay at all in Tuscany Essential. It's the same game, just only 3 expansions instead of 12, which was not cost-effective for us to make again.
Yeah, and it makes it easier for me as a consumer to say, I have the Essential Edition, I want an expansion, here's the Essential Edition expansion. It's easy for me to put 2 and 2 together.
Exactly, yeah.
Interesting. So have you thought about an electronic AI, Jared asks, for Scythe or for any other of your games, I guess?
Well, there are 2 programmers right now who are working together to just make a digital version of the Automa deck for Scythe.
Okay.
It's not a full digital implementation, but it'll allow someone to do that on their phone if they want, instead of having the deck of cards. I don't think there's that big of a difference, but they could. But we are working on digital ports of Viticulture and Scythe. So I have developers working on both of them. So people will be able to play those games by themselves against the computer, hopefully pretty soon.
That's exciting because I know for me, I get to whenever there's a digital, like I've been playing a ton of Le Havre on my iPad recently, and it lets me try out new stuff that I wouldn't be able to do in a full-on game because I want to beat my friends.
Right.
And so it lets me kind of experiment. So I think that would be really cool. I'd love to see, because you said Viticulture, right?
Viticulture and Scythe are the 2 right now, yeah.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
I'll buy those. So since you're designing Charterstone, Bezel4 asks, how much has playing legacy games influenced your design? So what legacy games have you played?
Risk Legacy was the first. I think that was the first Legacy game.
Yeah.
And that was like my best gaming experience of, I think it was 2014 that I played it.
Okay.
Wonderful time with it. And then I played through Pandemic Legacy last fall. Right now we're doing Time Stories, which isn't quite Legacy, but it has a Legacy feel to it. I think those are the only ones so far. And Gloomhaven is the one I'm really looking forward to, but I haven't played. So all 3 of them have had a pretty big impact on Charterstone. But Charterstone is it's a very different game than those are. And I guess the biggest thing that I'm trying to do different with Charterstone is after you've played through the campaign, whatever I end up calling it, I'll call it the campaign for now. It's not quite going to be a campaign, but once you finish like unlocking everything, after you've unlocked everything, you can continue to inhabit this village and play with the village that you've created, except that instead of playing your charter, you'll just like randomize the charters at the beginning of the game, and so you'll play a new charter. And so it's as if you have created a board game, and you can just continue to play that board game from now on if you want to. So that's the main, like, I don't think it'll happen all that often, because like Pandemic Legacy, you said, well, you're 2 months out, you haven't finished, right?
Yeah, we need like one session. We need one like afternoon.
But with Pandemic Legacy, I think it ends at the right time. Like when I was done playing it, I loved the experience, but I wasn't itching to play more Pandemic Legacy immediately after that. At least I want to play Season 2, but that's like the common complaint about legacy games, that you can only play them a certain number of times. But I think that's okay. For me, that's okay. Like I don't want to keep playing a game or that game 500 times. 12 to 18 plays is good enough for me. Do you guys experience that? Are you okay with that limit?
There are a lot of games on my shelf that are as expensive or more expensive or of the same weight as Pandemic Legacy that I have not played 12 to 18 times.
Yeah.
So I don't think I can make... I mean, there's always the argument, well, I could at some point. And I could. But there's a great experience, I think, in that Legacy. There's a great experience in that narrative that it's totally worthwhile to me. If the mechanics are solid and if the narrative is solid, and then by all means.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's categorically different, at least in my mind, from what you're describing Charterstone as and Pandemic Legacy and Risk Legacy is Risk and Pandemic are known games, right? And so anything you do to them is just a modification to the original system. Whereas I'm thinking, okay, if I get a game of Charterstone and I develop this village over a course of a campaign, I have a unique game that didn't exist before as a different kind of game. And if I have someone that lives, halfway across the country that I visit occasionally and they have a copy and I go to play their copy, I'm going to have to play a different kind of game. I don't know. I think that might have a little bit more appeal, at least to me, as far as having a different product when all is said and done to play.
And I'm glad you said that, Derek, because I'm really excited to hear if people actually do that and their experiences when they do. I've even heard some people who want to just like trade boards, because the board is the main thing that you're building. You can just switch that and just play with their board. And I'm curious to see people actually do that and if they have a good time doing it.
Well, and with a community like BGG, it might even be feasible to say, hey, I'll send you my board if you send me yours, and then you can just start mailing them back and forth. Yeah, that'd be really cool. That sounds like fun.
That'd be pretty cool. So, Jamey, Brad is asking about the effect Massdrop has had on the board game industry. Have you run across any effects of Massdrop?
Yeah, I spent my day on Massdrop today.
Oh, yeah.
That was Jamey's day. Yeah. So what... The thing that happened with Massdrop today is I saw a post on Facebook, I think it was actually last night, where someone said, hey, Scythe, how is Scythe on Massdrop? Like, why is it on Massdrop? And apparently Massdrop coordinated with some retailer or distributor to sell Scythe on there. And Massdrop, for people who don't know, and I'm still learning about it too, but it's a kind of a group buy site where if enough people get in on the drop, then the price drops a little bit more to a very low price. Like I don't want to promote it. Like it's low. It's way lower than a pre-ordered hot game should be.
Okay.
Like to me, Massdrop is not necessarily for like liquidation or overstock, but pretty close to that. Like you don't need to sell. I guess I'm throwing my opinion too too much into there into what it actually is, but it bothered me when I heard about it because I didn't want the perception. Like I've been accepting pre-orders for Scythe for $69, and hear that this other site was accepting pre-orders for $49 was really disturbing. I don't think that's me serving my customers well if there's a retailer out there doing that. But and the other part was this, like you guys have a local retailer that you really love and support,
Right.
And I don't know, it kind of got under my skin that Massdrop was offering such a low price and at such low margins. Like they're hardly making any money off of it. I don't know. You can tell. Like I haven't even gathered all my thoughts about it, but I spent a lot of time on Massdrop today talking to people. A lot of people were angry at me that I even got involved with it. But I also learned a lot about why people are on Massdrop. I don't know. I've talked a lot. Why don't you guys say something? What do you think about Massdrop and stuff on there?
I'd never heard of it. This is interesting to me. I guess from my perspective, you're selling units to distributors at a price, and it's their decision to sell it at whatever price for whatever profit margin they're trying to get. And so I guess from my perspective, like if I'm looking at buying something at retail and it's going to cost me $80 and someone else got it for $50 because they jumped on a discount, I'm not going to be mad at the distributor or mad at them for getting a discount. I mean, I don't know. I guess at some point you just say, why is this distributor selling things and making no money? It's like almost a Santa Claus move or something. I don't know. But I don't know. Can you control that as a business?
It's hard to control, and sometimes I have to decide, is that something I want to control? Because either way, you're right. The distributor's buying it from me at the same price either way, and but so much about it to me is about perception. Like and maybe it's just me, but I perceive Massdrop as like a bargain bin, a discount bin website. And if other people perceive it that way, even if some people perceive it that way, that's not how I want our products perceived, especially not a product that hasn't even released to retail yet.
Right.
Like if you want to do that in 6 months and you've got some inventory to sell, by all means, do it. You got to sell your stuff. But as a pre-order, I don't know. That's what
that is a little. I guess I'm just thinking. So if I decided I'm going to go on your website and I'm going to pre-order 50 copies at $69.99. And then I'm going to turn around and sell them in my store for $49.99. I'm just stupid, or I want people to have this game so badly that, and I have such a huge amount of cash to burn that I would do that for someone, right? But I can see how that would convey the wrong message to your consumers as a whole that don't necessarily converse with you one-on-one about your philosophy. So,
what do you think, Sean?
Yeah, so I mean, I subscribe to the Hot Deals forum on BGG, and I try and purchase locally often because my local shop, Empire Board Game Library, is a great supporter of the show. I'm good friends with the owner. I'm a consumer close friend, and so obviously I want to support that. Given my buying habits, especially my buying habits for the podcast, because there's a lot of games that I buy now that 2 years ago I wouldn't have bought because I could afford. Well, I could be a little bit more scrutinizing because I know what I like. But now, if it's the new hotness, even if I think I may not like it all that much, I need to have it out there for my audience and things like that.
Right.
So when I do see a game that's 50% off, 60% off, that's notable to me. That's a significant savings. I have yet to use Massdrop, and part of that's from I just don't understand what it is. I mean, I get it now, but I haven't.
Yeah.
But it is always weird to me when you see someone severely undercutting others. There was a in the flea market at Dice Tower Con, there was this one table that had so many games, and they were selling games at just ridiculous prices. They had like 3 copies of Splendor. They were selling for like $10 a piece. And other examples like that. And so it was always weird, and there's always that part of you as a consumer that's like, oh, I want to get a deal, but when it's, I don't know, it's weird. It's weird. So I'm still not quite understanding. I mean, it's a kind of crowdfunding in a sense, but different than Kickstarter, different than Indiegogo. But it's still people kind of coming together to pool resources to make something happen. I don't know.
Right.
It's weird.
Well, and part of it too, from my perspective as a publisher, is my relationships with retailers and distributors are really, really important. Like my Kickstarter backers are awesome, and they're a huge part of why my company exists. But for the long term, retailers and distributors I need to have good relationships there. And so if any of them went to this Massdrop page today and thought that I was involved with it, they'd be pretty pissed at me, and reasonably so. And so my main thing today just became like I wanted to get Massdrop to put on that page that the publisher had nothing to do with it. And they finally did that. Like, they haven't responded to anything else I've asked them to do, but they did do that. And so at least that's there so that retailers and distributors know it. And I don't know who it is. I don't know who Massdrop is buying from, but I'm curious to find out. I've actually put out a reward. If anyone can tell me who Massdrop is buying from, I will give them a free copy of Scythe.
Oh boy.
Because Massdrop isn't telling me, and
work.
no one else has told me. Yeah.
Man, times like this, I wish Alex were an investigative reporter. He's just a regular reporter.
Because, yeah, I guess from a retailer's perspective, like, for instance, with me, I think my retailer was able to order 5 copies, and they did that based on 5 people saying, hey, if you can get a copy, I want one.
Right.
But if they then turned around and saw this and said, oh, cancel my pre-order, which they can't do at this point, and they bought the game from this other place, I'll be honest, when I saw Cool Stuff throw up a pre-order, I think it was for like $52.99, I was like, oh, do I want to get in on that? And then I thought, no, you know what, I already talked to my local game store, so that's just what I'm going to stick with. But yeah, I can see how that could really cause some ruffle some feathers, I guess.
And I get it. I mean, I like to get inexpensive games too. People did mention miniature marketing Cool Stuff today in the discussion on Massdrop, and they're right. I mean, they're offering prices that I don't necessarily think reflect the value of Scythe, and are definitely undercutting. And so I might need to have some conversations with them about it, because I think they could sell it for $59 even, and that's still a very appealing price. But they're not shaving those margins down so thin that they cut everyone else out. And Miniature Market's here in St. Louis. So I have a really good relationship with them, and also CSI. So I want to keep that relationship strong. It's such a tough balance, guys.
Yeah.
You guys want to run Stegmaier games?
Nope.
You're in.
I will enjoy your games from afar. Though I am in Kansas City, so I'm close geographically.
You should come to Geekway someday. Have you ever been to Geekway to the West?
I haven't. I almost. So I was going to go to Dice Tower this year, found I couldn't go, and then I talked to Brandon, who does a podcast that I contribute to, and he goes every year, and he was like, nah, they're sold out, like way sold out. So couldn't make it this year, but maybe next year.
It's a great time. And they're expanding to fit. They did sell out pretty early, but I think they can fit another like 800 people next year.
Yeah.
I am tentatively planning on 2018.
2018 Geekway?
Yeah. Because next year I'm doing the Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation, which is in early June. Because Geekway's in May, right?
It's in May, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm doing early June Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation, and then early July Dice Tower Con. Okay. And right there, that's already a lot of time to get off from work, and so yeah.
But are you a featured guest at Rocky Mountain?
Yes, no, yes, no, no. Yes.
Are you just an attendee, or are you a special person?
I'd like to think I'm a special person.
He is a very special person.
I am a semi-special person.
I was thinking that was there. I wanted to see if you were. I guess.
Yeah.
Dan King is the special person, right? That goes.
Well, there are some other people that may be attending. I don't know what. I don't think I'm at liberty to say anything, but there's some. I talked to Michael, so there's some interesting things to keep an eye out on Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation. Alex had a blast. I'm super excited for it. So
yeah, it looks really awesome.
Yeah. So Brad wants to know more board game business behind the scenes info. So just any dirt you got, just lay it all out, Jamey.
Any dirt I've got. I'm learning a lot lately about localizing games, like putting games into other languages and everything that goes into that. We've been doing that for a while, but it's it's just been interesting to learn, like, just the coordination of getting, like, the translation done at the right time, and getting the money at the right time. Because I'm hesitant to put like a 3,000 copies of a game on a boat and not know if someone's going to pay me for it. I'm kind of learning those lessons. Some learning them the hard way. Others I'm creating some good relationships. Like, we have a German version of viticulture, and it's been great to work with Feuerland with that. And I'm working with a company in Japan called ArcLight, and they're doing Between Two Cities, and they have viticulture coming out as well.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see that, because, like, the margins on those games are really, really thin. We don't make much money off of them, and so sometimes I wonder, like, why are we doing it if I'm only making like $2 or $3 for the games? But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to get the game out there. Just like the saturation of getting the game out there, to have a lot of people exposed to it, I think is good. Yeah. But sometimes I wonder. I mean, those margins are so thin.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think the more people you have playing a game, the more they talk about it, and then if you have a cycle of people playing it multiple times and feeling like they played out, but then their group kind of picks it up and says, "Oh, this game is great," and you go, "Yeah, that was a great game. I want to start playing that again." You can kind of pick up momentum that way. Yeah.
Yeah. That's my hope, that there is that level of momentum. It's just interesting when it's so confined. Like the one in Japan, it's probably just confined to Japan, right? It's only going to be sold in Japan, and so I'm kind of curious, like, what is that saturation doing if it's only supporting that one version of the game in Japan? Mm-hmm. It's not a bad thing. I'm glad more people are playing those games and are exposed to them.
Yeah.
I think a really important question that a lot of people want to know, Jamey, is, are you playing Pokemon Go?
I actually I got outed as a non-geek the other day because I'm not playing it. I think I'm still very much a geek, but I don't have time to play Pokemon Go. I think it's really cool, but I'm not playing it now. Are you guys playing it?
Derek, are you?
No, I'm not. So I downloaded it like almost as soon as it came out, because I was a huge Pokemon kid. Like, I was a freshman in high school when it first came out. I was totally into it. And I found that this is like the opposite of what I want a video game to be. I want a video game to be something that I'm sitting on my couch and I have nothing else to do, and I sit down and play Pokemon. But this then said, "Oh, now we want you to get up and like walk around your neighborhood at midnight." And I said, "Nah, I'm good."
What year did you graduate, Derek?
From high school?
Yeah.
2000.
Weird. So I graduated in '99, but I was so far so far away from Pokemon. I had my other nerdy pursuits, but that's interesting.
Yeah, so I had a friend, and there was a kid in his neighborhood who was like in 4th grade. He was like, "Oh, this kid just showed me this game. You got to check it out." And so I just picked it up and I was hooked. So
I'm playing. Like I said, I've never played a Pokemon game before. Never a fan of Pokemon. And I just downloaded. I'm like, yeah, it's a free download, whatever. And it feels like an MMO, except instead of moving your character around, you're moving yourself around. That's cool. So there's grinding to it, and for whatever reason, I like grinding when it well, again, phrasing, when it comes to MMOs. For whatever reason, it's that Pavlovian dog, the bell. Like whenever you get an achievement or you catch something new or you go up a level or whatever, like that works for me. And I don't know what it is. And I got Raquel playing it. We went to the Albuquerque Old Town Wednesday night last week after game night, and there were like 200 people at midnight just playing Pokemon. Like it's crazy.
That's insane.
And so I'm wondering. It's such a big phenomenon. Like there's more users than Twitter, you know, in such a short time. And in the month it's been out, right? About a month. Yeah. And I don't know if is there some takeaway from this? Is there some application to board gaming? Is there some behavior that Pokemon Go players are displaying that has some crossover into board games? I don't know. It may be too early to tell.
Yeah, well, some of those things you mentioned, like the grinding, is that in any game, in any board game?
They try to simulate it, but there's always, it seems to me like a little bit of backlash. I mean, even Pathfinder adventure card game tries to do that, right? I mean, you're leveling up your characters, you're getting new abilities, adding stats and stuff like that, but it's just not quite the same as it can a video game can accomplish.
You can grind in Pathfinder in the sense of if you're close to completing the scenario and you think that you have some extra time, which Alex does all the time, and it drives me crazy. So I'm like, we're going to lose if we just don't end it right now. And yeah, you look for some more equipment. So that can kind of be grinding. Oh man, we lost one a couple weeks ago. And he's like, no, just let the villain go. It'll be fine. I'm like, no, we need to do this. He's like, no, it'll be fine. And we lost. And we
so
have
you play it solo.
Yeah, six characters at a time. No, but we have a rule that if you lose, you have to reveal 3 cards from your deck, and the highest check you have to get rid of. So that because there's no penalty for losing.
Right.
And if you're not going to win, or someone's going to die, you can just wait out the clock. So.
I haven't played Pathfinder, but the thing that I've heard about it that I love and that I want to get in one of my games, probably Charterstone, is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like at the end, if you get that new artifact or that new treasure, I've heard reviewers say that they just get so excited to play again so they can use that thing and see how good it is.
Yep.
Yeah, and that might connect with Pokemon too. But I love that idea of getting that new thing that you can't use yet, and that how it pushes you towards making you want to use it or even thinking about what it could do. Anticipation.
And there's also anticipation in chasing certain cards, and knowing that, like I really wanted my wizard to get a pet dragon, and it would come up in someone else's Explorer, and I'm like, okay, let's do whatever you can to acquire that dragon for me. And yeah, I don't know. So yeah, there's some. I know it connects with a lot of people, like Alex and I. I also know it kind of falls flat for a lot of people, but I love that ability to watch your character grow. I love that you're chasing certain things, and there's that new experience of trying out, getting a new piece of equipment or whatever. And I like how it kind of distills the role-playing experience, not in the sense of role-playing, but in the sense of min-maxing a character, which is something I did a lot when I role-played a lot more. But no, so I don't know. There's something there. And I guess that's part of why I like Pokemon Go and other MMOs when I have the time.
So you didn't just stand up when there were 200 people playing and say, so do like 4 of you want to play Zolkin? I'm sure they would have responded positively to that.
Where's Zolkin on your top 10 still, Jamey? Is it still near the top?
Yeah, I think it's definitely top 5.
Okay.
I think Isle of Skye may have gotten into the top 5.
Really?
Time Stories is probably on my new top 10, but Terra Mystica and Sulkin's still up there, and then Castles of Mag and Ludwig is still up there. So it's still top 5.
Okay. So last year it fell from number 1 to number 2, but Terra Mystica was number 1. So.
Yeah, for a while it alternated between those two, and then Castles of Mad King Ludwig took the top spot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I
love doing this top 10 list. You guys do. How often do you guys do them?
Every year. So episode 104, so our anniversary episode, is when we update the top 10. So there's going to be some significant movement on mine.
Cool.
I'm very excited.
Is Food Chain making it in?
No, Food Chain's not making it in.
All right.
But I'm just waiting. So Derek and I have been playing a bunch of games online of Food Chain. We're playing a game right now with Suzanne and with our buddy Matthew. And Derek, every game I played with Derek online, he's killed us. But I'm about to win this game as soon as Matthew takes his turn. Of course, Matthew can just not take his turn, and then I never win.
I know. I'm kind of reveling in that right now.
Yeah. Have you played Food Chain, Jamey?
Yeah, I played it one game a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
What'd you think?
I really liked half of the game, and the other half I think I need to play like 5 times to get to appreciate or enjoy. And I'm not sure if I want to play it 5 times, so I don't know if I'll get there. But the half where you're building the corporate structure and upgrading guys and the tech tree that you're kind of building, oh man, I love that. That was brilliant. Yeah. It's all the interactions that I had a really hard time wrapping my mind around in that first game.
Oh yeah, there's so much stuff that's just not transparent, not readily clear what one thing's going to affect another.
Yeah.
The rule book's kind of rough, especially trying to figure out how you make sales, how you fulfill demand, and things like that.
Yeah.
It came to a point today where I was at work, and I sent the picture to Derek in chat, where I was basically walking down the process of him fulfilling all these different orders to see if he could fulfill this one house,
So
and I
you
figured
could
out
sell
he
it.
couldn't. Yeah, he couldn't, and no one else could, so only I could, so I could actually use my luxury manager. So instead of trying to undercut his price, I was like, yeah, you can sell all the cheap pizza you want. I'm going to have the $20 Coke bottles and the $20.
Times 2.
Yep.
Because it's a double price.
Yep.
I love that game.
Yep, it's really good. No, Food Chain will not be in my top 10 because I didn't give it a 6.
Yeah, no, neither did I. It's still at the top of my list right now, though, of games I want to play.
Yeah.
Not all time, but for now.
I think that's one of those games that is so difficult that once you comprehend how to make it work and comprehend that system, that I'm sure if you had like an MRI of your brain, it would just be lit up with happiness that you achieved that goal of fixing out this difficult problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very satisfying.
Yeah.
So a couple other questions from the chat. Bezel4 asks, what stage of completion do you like to personally see when viewing prototypes?
When someone pitches their game to me?
Yeah.
I like it to be heavily as play tested as possible. If they're talking about art and design, I like to see intuitive graphic design, but not finished, and definitely not finished art, because we're going to do all that from our end anyway. But it's got to be intuitive. Like, I don't want to see pencil and paper. I want to see something that's at least a little polished and where they put thought into the user interface of it. And I want to make sure that it's play tested and that I can read the rules and figure out how the game plays and understand the game. That's all really important. Yeah, I would say that those are the key things that I think about when I look at a game.
And then there was another question. Where did it go? I just had it. It was just there. And there's something else about, well, I don't know. I lost it. Oh, as a publisher, so Brad asked, as a publisher, and this kind of ties in, what game mechanic are you tired of seeing?
That's interesting.
Don't say legacy, because you gotta.
I'm sure it's a narrative. Yeah, narrative is just getting boring.
Yeah. That's a good question, but I can't think of one offhand. I'm looking at my collection. I don't know. I don't know if there is one that I get tired of. 'Cause I play a pretty wide variety of games, and if I get tired of one game, even if I like it, then I'll just put it aside for a while and come back to it later. I think, okay, so actually this is one I can mention. I played the new Agricola yesterday, the new edition of Agricola. I really enjoyed it. And Agricola, I've been love-hate with Agricola for a long time. I love the design. I admire it so much, but the whole feeding thing has... I would say that's kind of a mechanism in games, right? Where you have to... Or a big part of the game is figuring out how to feed your people and getting to the point where you don't have to worry about that so much because you've got your engine going. And that's something that I don't get excited about that in games, but it's kind of like the Food Chain Magnate thing. When I'm in the middle of a game and I figure that out, and I did that last night with it, it does feel good. So that's one that for a while I was kind of down on, the feeding aspect of it. But the new version makes it a little easier to get food, and so it wasn't that big of a deal. Have you guys played the new version?
No, I haven't yet.
I have not. I swore off Agricola. I'd much rather play Caverna. Matthew says that I should play Agricola with Farmers of the Moor, and so at some point I need to do that. I play a ton of Agricola on my iPad though, so it's not. It doesn't feel as punishing when it's like a 40-minute or 30-minute game, as opposed to like 2.5 hours, sometimes more depending on the player count.
Yeah, if a game doesn't smack me, I want them to do it quickly.
Yeah. Over on Twitter, Ed Duncan says, "What did you do before game design, Jamey?"
I've had 2 jobs since college. I was a '99 graduate from high school as well. So.
Oh, cool.
After college, I worked as a project manager at a medical publishing company, like a medical textbook publishing company. I had that job for about 4 years, and then after that, I worked at Washington University here in St. Louis. I was the director of operations of a facility that was on campus. So I managed like the staff of the facility, and I managed the facility, all the business stuff.
I mean, I know what brought you into board games, but what do you see like moving forward into the future for Stegmaier Games? Are you thinking like you're going to expand your company? Are you comfortable with the size it's at right now? What do you see in the future?
In terms of what we publish, I'd like to, like my goal for our trajectory is to publish 1 to 2 new games a year at most, maybe 1 to 2 expansions a year, and maybe 1 accessory or ancillary product, like the treasure chest that we make.
Mm-hmm.
And that, it's kind of the ticket to the Days of Wonder model, where they have that steady pace of like one new game, maybe 1 new expansion every year. And I really like that model because it lets me put a lot of time and energy into just a few products and make them as good as I think they can be, and then support them once people actually have those products.
Mm-hmm.
From the personnel side, right now it's me full-time. My co-founder works about 5 hours a week, 5 to 7 hours a week. And then we have Morton, who is our Automa specialist, and he works in development with us. And he works part-time. He's in Denmark. And so I don't know if we'll need to make the company much bigger than that, but I anticipate at some point maybe one of them would go full-time, or we'll have a different full-time employee just for the long term. But growing at that pace and just reprinting older games and supporting them, it doesn't take a lot of manpower. I think the main thing that it takes me, I work about 70 to 80 hours a week, and so if I ever wanted to do anything other than this, like have a family, then that might change some things.
Yeah.
So Brad and I were thinking the same thing at the same time, and you don't have to answer this, but at what point are you going to welcome an offer from Asmodee to acquire Stegmaier? Because for the most part, they let their studios kind of, it seems like, at least on the outside, kind of do what they do best. True,
and I respect that about them. I was joking around with some people on Twitter. You may have seen this the other day, where joking around with some very small publishers like Stegmaier that maybe will make an offer for Asmodee. We'll buy them before they buy us. I think Stephen Bonacore said he put in $5, so I think that gets part of the way there. I don't know. People have asked me that, like, and I don't think we even, I doubt Asmodee knows. They probably know we exist, but they probably don't care. But if we did get a very generous offer, I'd probably still say no at this point, because I love what I do, but I guess what you said in the original question, they might just let me do what I do, and that might be a little different. If they came to me with a very generous offer and I could just keep doing exactly what I do, maybe.
Yeah, hard to turn that down.
Yeah.
Well, we need a lawyer to look over the paperwork. Let me know.
We already have 2 lawyers, but I guess we could add a third.
I'll just sit here and give my thumbs up.
So we're going to wrap this up in, I'd say, like 2 or 3 minutes. So if anyone has any last-minute quick-fire questions, that was my quick-fire, by the way.
That's better. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Derek, any last questions for Jamey?
No.
Well, Derek, let me ask you then. You've got a lot of great games on your shelf behind. If I need to play one game that's behind you right now, what game do you think I should play that I can see?
Ooh, an excellent question. Have you played The Gallerist?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Well, that would be one of my first ones. There's a game I always think of and then forget about it when people ask me. Oh man. Okay. So here's one that's totally out of the blue and it's crazy expensive, so a lot of people don't have it.
Okay.
Have you heard of Dawn: Rise of the Oculites?
No.
So this was a game that was on Kickstarter from Eagle Griffin.
Okay.
And it's by a designer, Ben Boersma, who lives in Australia. and it's kind of his brainchild, his baby. He created this world, and it's just like it's a two-player skirmish game that has this elaborate campaign mode. And it's just really, really good. It's a great game, and it's just, as all Eagle Gryphon games are, just way overproduced. Painted miniatures in the whole 9 yards, and it is a really fun game. I like it a lot. So if you haven't picked that one out, you get a chance.
It's the one with a bunch of like really crazy minis, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They have like one eye with a stalk. And the eyes on the top of the stalk, and there's like a water tribe and a plant tribe and a flower tribe, and they all have these crazy abilities, and you can level them up, and yeah, it's really cool.
So I happen to notice on your shelf, Derek, and I'm keeping you up, Quadropolis. I think
Yes.
I think I remember when it came out the first time as Between Two Cities.
Between Two Cities is on my shelf on the other side of the room. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but it's probably going to go because it doesn't have a solo mode, and Between Two Cities does.
Yeah.
So, I love Between Two Cities.
Have you heard much comparison, Jamie, between the two? I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, a little bit. I haven't played Quadropolis yet, but it did look like the buildings had some similarities. I love the art between them is very distinct.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like that two very different styles can coexist. I think I might like the quad. I think the Quadropolis art pops off the page a little bit better than our art in Between Two Cities, but I still love what Beth Sobel did with the art.
It's consistent with the rest of your games. It keeps them kind of on a similar palette, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe all your games exist in the same universe.
Someone had a theory about that the other day.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Whedonverse, how there's a theory that those all exist together.
Right.
And then, Jamie, so Frank is asking if you can show us your collection. You're not in the room with your collection, are you? Or
the camera like taped down. Like there's my collection. That's some of it. There you go. Yeah. So it's not a huge collection because every year I host something called the. Can you guys see it? I can see myself now.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Okay. I host something called the Stegmaier Games Design Day, which is when a bunch of designers come to St. Louis and we just play games and play test games all day. It's kind of like a proto spiel or an unpub, but I give away like a third of my collection every year to attendees of that thing. So I cull my collection a lot. Even games that I really enjoy, if I haven't played them in a year, it automatically goes to that design day. So that's why it's not like a huge, massive collection.
Cool.
Yeah.
That is some impressive restraint and I've got like 60 games that I've got down here in the basement that I'm looking to get rid of. But yeah.
I'm a hoarder.
So let's see. Jared's also asking, is the frame picture behind you, is that one of Jacob's from Scythe?
It is, yeah. Jacob, after a couple months after Scythe funded, he very kindly sent me that, and then the cover of the game is, you can't see it, but it's right behind the camera here, but that's one of the pieces from Scythe that he sent all the way from, I may have had it printed in here. Jacob's in Poland, but I think he may have had it printed here and shipped to me. Yeah. Cool. I'm a single guy in a condo, so I don't have like a lot of beautiful art on the wall, so it really helped this room when I got that art.
Let's see, and then Brandon from the What Did You Play This Week podcast thing, he's talking about how Between Two Cities is the best game he has right now to kick off game night with a handful of people. That and Codenames are the only games that he's been able to get played back-to-back just about every time they get played. I love how quick Between Two Cities is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think so kind of going back to my Quadropolis hate, and I don't hate it. It's fine. It's a fine, serviceable game.
You don't like it.
I don't like it. But I feel like there's so much similarity in the gameplay, but Between Two Cities offers faster playtime and that semi-cooperative nature, whereas Quadropolis is just, it's good, it's fine, but it's about 15 minutes too long.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know.
Yeah, Between Two Cities fits that perfect niche of I need a short game that I can introduce some new gamers to, but it's still competitive, right? So I have this cooperative element, so I can help explain the game as we're playing it, but at the same time, I'm also competing against them. There are just so many things that click in that game of I don't have another game and I don't see another game I can get that could possibly fit in that niche for me. So, yeah, it's great.
I'm glad to hear that. I've seen the one version of the expansion to it about 4 months ago, but I'm really excited because I'm gonna see the designers are presenting to me the new version of the expansion at Gen Con next week. So I'm curious to see what came together, and I think it'll still be a very short game. I think it adds like maybe 10 minutes at most, but I think it's still very, very short with the expansion.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, well, I think that's going to do it. So real quick, Derek, why don't you tell people where they can reach you out on the interwebs?
Sure, yeah. You can find me on Twitter, Solo Story Gamer, and I do a segment on the What Did You Play This Week podcast thing called Evolving Review, and then I occasionally contribute to the Dice Tower when they don't have a bunch of special episodes throughout the summer. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Derek. I appreciate you supporting the show, obviously, and coming on and hanging out with us.
Thanks for the privilege.
Thanks, sir.
No, absolutely. Jamey, what about you? Where can people reach out to you?
They can find me on Twitter and Facebook and the internet at Stegmaier Games. Everything is Stegmaier Games. I'm also there at Jamey Stegmaier on Twitter. And if you want the Kickstarter stuff, you can go to kickstarterlessons.com, and it's all there.
Are you committed to celebrating a yearly Scythemas in July as a holiday?
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
We'll just play Scythe. We'll just say because when did it come out? The second week in July, was that when most of the
US? Yeah.
Most of them were happening, and that's Scythemas. That's Scythemas week. And we'll celebrate it.
Wow.
We'll celebrate it every year.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, Jamey, I do appreciate your time. There's a ton of people thanking you for your time over here in the comments, and lots of informative stuff, lots of stuff that, again, that transparency that you have, I think, is awesome. And I love the stuff you do. I love your games, and it's great that you are willing to spend some time with us. So
it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's going to do it then for this hangout. Again, thanks to all of our awesome Patreon backers that make this possible. And until next time, this is Sean and
Jamey and Derek.
And Derek.
Sure. All right. We're going to sign off. Hail Hydra, everybody.
See you guys.